What's up guys, this is Coach Donny with ElevateYourself.org. Welcome to Volleyball Coach Reacts to Haikyuu Season 1, Episode 4. Make sure you watch my other reaction videos from the first 3 episodes linked in the description box. If you've been enjoying my content on the Elevate Yourself YouTube channel, then join my Patreon that offers exclusive content like my live Q&A sessions, monthly podcasts, behind-the-scenes footage, my private blog, and much more. You can sign up with the link below, and the first 50 members will receive a shout out in one of my videos and a chance to win a free Elevate t-shirt and lanyard. I'll be giving a shout out to the first 31 patrons who already signed up at the end of this video. Thank you to everyone who provided feedback about the video titles. I'm going to try the basic name combined with the episode information. Here are a few things that I learned reading your comments from the last reaction video. Hinata came to Karasuno because that's where he saw the little giant play. Kage in Kageyama means shadow, and Hi in Hinata means sun. And when you combine the characters from Tobio and Shoyu, you get Hisho, which means to fly, which is super cool. First year means sophomore in high school in Japan. When a player is referred to as ace, that means they're the go-to guy. Lastly, I'll share some of the best volleyball sensations that some of you shared in the comments. I am an awkward pile of bones, and I'm just happy that the ball even goes up. I think we've all been there before. A 5'9" player getting a solo block, which is very impressive. That sit in the air sensation when you set the ball perfectly. Saving a ball that no one thought was gettable, and that moment when you turn a lost point into an opportunity. That's spoken like a true libero. This is probably my second favorite volleyball sensation. Alright, let's get the party started. Alright, let's pause this for a second. Gotta read that. A player is not a soloist, they are one member of an orchestra. Definitely agree with that. The moment even one of them believes that they are unique, all is lost. So true. I wonder what discipline this poet or person is. Probably musician. Coach Bernardo Roca de Rezende, the Brazilian coach of the Brazilian men's national volleyball team. Oh, it's a quote from Coach Rezende, one of the greatest coaches of all time. One of my favorite photos of him is getting so frustrated that he's just biting his finger. Yeah, definitely one of the legendary coaches. Check him out. It's just as entertaining to watch him coach as well as the success of his teams, like Kageyama. Yep. That's right. When you act like that, to the point sometimes people don't want to play with you if it's all about yourself. This is a cool thing. This is me being a trainer. This little ab roller back here. I used to study animation illustration before I became an art teacher. So the way they create these scenes is you have a separate illustrator who really paints these incredible details. So you notice the detail of the background, lots of different shadings. It looks like it was, I mean, this is probably painted digitally, but kind of like a watercolor effect. And even the glare on this ab roller, the ridges. So if you've ever used this where you hold it and you kind of roll forward to really strengthen your core. But I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, for setting, you definitely need a very, very, very strong core to maintain that upright position, because that's how your energy transfer is going to go from your legs through your arms. Well, look at this detail in the books too. I mean, so you have a separate illustrator who does the entire background, and then you have an animator who animates the character and the movable parts on top of the nice illustration. There she is again. Oh man, this is, if you guys have seen me play on my games, I would do this. if I wasn't trying to reach out to like a wider audience that's more family friendly. But I act so silly sometimes when I play. I yell, I cheer, I just let it all out. Small background information. When I was in college, I was pretty bad sometimes. Because I was short and everyone looked down on me in college, I just had such a big chip on my shoulder that I would do, every time I would score, I would talk trash, I would do cartwheels, I would just do anything to get in their heads. And for me, it was just a way to fire myself up, and this totally reminds me of myself back in the day. So now I'm going to share with you my personal story. I actually have two stories. The first one is a story about myself when I lost my temper on the court. I'm definitely not claiming to be a perfect player my entire career, or even now. I remember when I was in high school, I have a super competitive drive in me, and I have a bad temper. I've learned how to manage it a lot better now, but when I was young, maybe because I was the youngest of 3 siblings, and I had a bunch of older cousins that would bully me and pick on me, I think I just had this inner rage of always trying to fight back. And so by the time I came to high school and I had a chance for me to compete, sometimes when my teammates weren't trying their hardest, I just laid into them. Now, luckily, I was nice majority of the time, and I was always encouraging, so I'm grateful that my teammates didn't take it too personally, but I can tell that I did bring down some of the teammates, and I feel really bad for that. And Kageyama, young in his career, reminds me of that. So it's okay to have a fiery personality, and it's okay to be competitive and passionate, but just learn how to funnel that passion in a constructive and productive way. Not to say you can't get on your teammates, because there's a good way to do that. You can be hard on your teammates, but it has to be in the right way, in a way that they can receive it. The second story about sitting on the bench. So a lot of people have the misconception when they set to cushion the ball. The only time you should do that if you're playing beach volleyball, because you have to have a super clean set with no spin. But when you're playing indoor like this, the cushioning doesn't happen consciously. Like, you don't want to wait to touch it to absorb and then release. What happens is when you're receiving a set, you need to keep your hands open but relaxed. And then you're going to meet the ball kind of a couple inches away from your hands. So on the way up, if my hands are relaxed, the ball's going to bounce, but my hand's still going forward, and that rebound gives you a little extra power and that softness. So when you're setting indoors, don't try to absorb and then release, because then you end up dropping it below your nose, and then you might get called for a lift, and you're not going to have a lot of control down here. You can't even back set or set a quick set. So keep your hands relaxed, meet the ball, and let the ball kind of sink into your hands before you release. So that's what you see here with the animation. And it's beautiful, of course. I have a second story about attitude problems when I had to bench one of our best players. So this was in 2014, and this is probably the best libero I've coached in our program. She had such a good feel for the ball. She was one of our best passers. And because she was so good, she easily got disinterested because everyone else's passing ability was lower than hers. And she knew it, and it was pretty obvious. So it was challenging for her to stay engaged, partly because she had an attitude problem. She just thought she was better than everybody else, and she was a little selfish player. So we were playing one of the top teams in our league, like one of the top 3 teams, and we go up 2-0. So we win the first 2 sets, and in the U.S. we played best of 5 for high school. So we go 2 up against a really good team, and this player keeps having an attitude problem. And I remember after the first game, we won pretty handily. She just had her shoulder slump because she wanted to play middle back, even though I positioned her left back. Because in our system, we had a lot of back row hitting from our pipe, which is our middle back position. So she was pouting and just kind of obviously looked disinterested on the court. And I warned her after the first set that if you don't fix your attitude, you're going to go on the bench. I don't care how well you play. So the second game, same thing happened, and she didn't fix it. So after the second set we won, I didn't start her. And I started our other libero, who was only a sophomore at that time. And I called her name. She's like, huh? And so I put her in, and we were struggling because one of our best passes was no longer there, and our team was trying to do their best. And our sophomore just, it's just our first time starting, and she's playing behind a really good libero. So we lost that third one, and I remember turning to my assistant coach, and I said, we might have to lose this game, but at the end of the day, we win the culture. And what I meant by that is that we stick by our principles, meaning you can't have an attitude and the team has to be higher than yourself. So to me, that's a greater victory than actually winning the game. The funny thing is, in the fourth set, I actually left our middle in there. Now, in our program, we train all of our players to do all the skills, and they will specialize as a middle or a setter or an outside hitter. But we spend an hour of everybody doing all the skills because, one, it just makes you a better volleyball player, and it's just fun to work on a variety of skills. So we ended up taking out our second libero because she was just too shaky, and I didn't want to put in our regular libero because she had an attitude. She was still pouting on the bench. And I left our middle in there, and our middle was just so happy to pass. She didn't know any better. She's like, sure, I'll pass. We ended up losing barely by the fourth set, and then in the fifth set, we won like 15-12 or 15-13. It was just an amazing victory, and we won without our best passer, and we had to win with our middle passing. And you can see the disappointment in the starting libero's face. And I think she realized, like, dang, this team really doesn't need me. And that can be a hard realization because at that point, I think she decided the team didn't need her, even though we actually really needed her to do really well. But luckily we won, and I think that showed her that, wow, this team is actually still pretty good without me. So it's more about me wanting to be a part of what they're doing and not making it about me and not expecting the team to be about me. Eventually, she worked her way back into the starting lineup because I didn't make it easier on her. I don't tolerate attitudes in my programs. But I'm hoping that Kageyama will go through that same process. But benching your best player is honestly one of the best messages you can send to the coach because it communicates to the rest of the players that you don't play favorites and you stick by your principles, which is a greater life lesson that the kids can learn from a coach. Gotta hide behind those emo banks.
せっかくトス上げても誰も飛んでないんじゃ。ああ、そうだ。トスを上げた先に誰もいないっつうの。心底怖え。
When you feel like your teammates have given up on you.
それ中学の話でしょ?
That's something I'll add. And this is really great to see more of Hinata's character development because he's more than just a kid who really loves to play and works really hard. This is something I do identify a lot with Hinata. Being honest with yourself in terms of what makes you happy, especially in terms of volleyball. And a lot of people ask me, am I too short to play this position? Am I too whatever? At the end of the day, we play the sport because it makes us happy, right? Competing makes us happy. And you just have to put yourself in a position that allows you to truly be yourself. I'm not saying don't ever work on your weaknesses. Like if you love hitting, don't just hit all the time. You need to block, you need to set, you need to serve and all that stuff. But if you love a position and a coach is not designating you to play a specific position, then just go for it. Who cares if you're 5'4" and you love to play middle because you love the block, you love to hit quick sets? Just go for it. Just play it. Let a coach cut you or let a team decide whether you cannot play that position. Don't let other people who do not make coaching decisions to decide that for you. Oh no! I wanted him to hit that so badly.
こんな速いのおい何してるもっとは出た王様のトス
He's learning. He caught himself.
それはどうかな
Alright, this is great.
全然タイミングわかんねえよお前反応早いんだからもっとこうバッと来いよバッとバンなのかグワンなのかどっちだ重要なのはそこじゃねえよ影山そんじゃ中学の時と同じだよ日向には反射もスピードも出れば速い
Oh, now he's humble enough to actually receive some feedback.
お前のトスが殺しちゃってるんじゃないの日向には技術も経験もない
Just pure athleticism.
お前にギリギリ合わせてくれた優秀なプレイヤーとは違うでも素材はピカイチそんな天才とか大げさです言ってねえよお前の腕があったらさなんつうかもっと日向の持ち味っていうか才能っていうか
Yeah, play to their strengths.
菅さんファイト仲間のことが見えないはずがない
So I'll dive into a little deeper what that setter's talking about. So as a setter, not only is your job to actually have consistent rhythm and location. So rhythm is a little different than height because some hitters need a lower set, some hitters need a higher set. The main job of a setter is to keep your hitters in rhythm and consistent execution. Once you get that down, the second job of a setter is to identify the block. So wherever the blockers move, usually you want to set opposite to that direction. That's what we call setting against the flow. And I would only do this at the higher levels because sometimes people get too fancy and always set against the flow and then nobody can hit because you end up being too tricky. But part of that is reading the movement of the middle blocker and the outside hitter who's covering you and just waiting for them to make a move because once they cheat, then you just set in the direction that they're not moving. On top of that, you also have to know who your hot hitters are, meaning which hitters are doing really well. And even if they have two blockers on them, you need to keep track of who's hitting well because you want to keep setting them, especially towards the end of the game. So all that is encompassed into that analytical ability that Tanaka, I think, is referring to.
なんかうまいことってなんだでもちゃんとボール来た俺はお前の運動神経が羨ましいはだから宝の持ち腐れのお前が腹立たしいはそれならお前の能力俺が全部使ってみせる
That's a backhanded compliment.
なんだお前の一番のスピード一番のジャンプが持っていく信じて飛べ
Believe it and jump.
ここだ悪い
Wow, we gotta rewind that for two things. The first thing is the amount of detail in this net. Now, this is one of the more popular net systems. The way that it is threaded through this axle here, and even this clip, we have this particular antenna in our high school gym. And part of what makes this animation great is all these little details that you might not consciously know, but because in your memory somewhere you know that's what an antenna looks like, even though you might not actually look at it, it just feels more real. And I think that's why Haikyuu is so successful, because so many details are so on point that it really allows you to immerse yourself in the story. Because I guarantee if they did not have a colored antenna and they just looked like it was strapped on and all these details weren't there, I think volleyball players wouldn't feel as immersed in the volleyball gym itself. I mean, you even got this angled speaker that's angling down towards the center, like all auditorium speakers. If you look, they have an angle so they can project sound toward the center. They're not necessarily strapped up against the wall. And he apologized. Kageyama's matured a lot.
しすぎた。やっぱ簡単じゃねえな。コート上の全部を常に把握しとくのもしんどいし。面白い。
何ニヤニヤしてんだよ。ふざけんな。顔面2回目だぞ。
理解不能。さっきのはマグルだろ。なのに懲りずに何回も。
でも多分日向はまた何回でもボールを見ないで飛ぶんじゃないかな。確かに理解不能だよな。他人を 100% 信じるなんてそうできることじゃないもんな。
Yeah, trust has to be a choice, and you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. Here are my immediate reactions to episode 4. Tsuki is really getting on my nerves. Now, I believe that we all have our reasons as to why we act the way we do, but the most important thing is being willing to change so you can be a better teammate, a better player, and most importantly, a better person. So I know I've been hating on Tsuki a lot during this episode because I just don't like douchebags, but I'm sure the coach took him on the team for a reason, and he probably sees a lot of potential in him, and I think he's a first year, so he might be a little immature, and he's got a couple years to develop as a player and a person. Plus, having a little height on the team with some skill is not a bad thing. So I'm curious to see how his potential develops over the course of each episode. But I still think a lot of his trash talking comes from his insecurity about himself. It was cool to see Kageyama and Hinata develop a trusting relationship. I was particularly excited to see the relationship between Kageyama and Hinata develop into more of a trusting one. And we saw earlier it was like a blind trust where Hinata jumped and spiked with his eyes closed. But I think because Hinata just trusted him 100%, that inspired Kageyama to do an even better job for his teammates. And that's something we can learn from too. If you work really hard for your teammates, there's a good chance they will work hard for you in return. And then eventually you start feeding off of each other, and you have this ping pong effect where you just keep working harder and harder for each other because you're essentially inspiring each other to be better and better all the time. And that's the beauty of team sports. I was surprised to see Kageyama's attitude change so quickly, but he probably had so much trauma, and now we understand why he doesn't like being called the king. And this is the first time that he finally really confronted the dark parts of himself that he was ashamed of or didn't like about himself. And that's something that we can also learn from Kageyama's character development. Until we are willing to really just look at the mirror and be honest with our shortcomings, we will never improve and we will always hit a ceiling. And too oftentimes we spend all of our energy doing things that make us feel good in the moment, like spending all of our time on our strengths. But the only way to get better is to work on your weaknesses. And that's not just limited to volleyball skill. That expands to your personality. And Kageyama's limitation was not his skill, because he's a very talented setter. It's his personality. So the fact that this is clicking for him so early in his high school career is going to bode well for the rest of his volleyball career in high school. I'm glad that Hinata finally got to hit a hard spike, especially after getting blocked so many times by Tsuki, who had great blocking technique, by the way. Just simple move, get in front with your feet and hand straight over. So it was cool to finally see that come to fruition, where all of Hinata's hard work of grinding through the game, pushing through the errors, and then getting that one hit. And sometimes that's all it takes, is that one moment of success where everything clicks and your body has this incredible confidence to keep doing it over and over and over again. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and click on that notification bell so you'll know every time I release a new video and never miss a Haikyuu reaction video. Before we end this video, I want to recognize the first 31 members of the Elevate Yourself Patreon page, and thank you again for your support. Chris Dietrich, Emmanuel Casanova, Indigo TM, Cameron Kalubrian, Amandeep Singh, Xavier Buford, Felipe Diogo, Michael Gascon, William Thiel, Brandon Ho, Max Vernon Holm Gesnar, Ryan Hopkins, Jeffrey Kanemitsu, Ben Lynch, Franklin Wang, Christopher Gerard, John David Rogers, Andy, Christian Afante, David Braverman, Aldair, Thomas, Camilo Garcia, 88EXP, Mark, Evan Chan, The Mighty Duck, Marcus, Too Much Tuna 4869, Austin Romeo, and Caleb. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.